Today we're doing the Google Pixel 8a, the more budget-friendly offering from the Google Pixel lineup. And if you can't tell, I'm not in New York City right now. I'm actually just outside of Mountain View, California, outside of San Francisco, and we're here for Google I/O, Google's developer conference. And so we'll explore as per the usual, all while we test out this phone today. But first things first.
Coffee. Check. And welcome to Google's campus here in Mountain View, and more specifically, we're at the Gradient Canopy building. This 620,000 square foot building with a dragon scale solar panel roof is home to what Google calls the visitor experience. This is one of the only spaces on a Google campus designed to be used by the public. It includes a Google store, which was actually supposed to be the first Google store ever, but these shelves, which are based on a modular version of the Victorian era Cabinet of Curiosities, or a room where you would have displayed collectibles, took Ivy Ross and the architects 5 years of development to figure out how to make it modular and fit perfectly. Then there's a pop-up shop for showcasing local business products, the Huddle, a collaborative space for events, workshops, and IT certifications that anyone can attend, and a cafe also open to the public. Now the cafe is actually a really cool concept. It is a no-profit cafe, so everything is sold at cost in an effort to make it a place anyone can come and get a well-made meal for an affordable price. Also, every ingredient is locally sourced and grown, and there is zero food waste. Every food item gets composted and then is used to help with the growing of the food for the cafe. Also, everything left over at the end of the day is donated to local meal kitchens. And coffee's pretty good too. All right, speaking of the design of the building, let's start with the design of the Pixel 8a, and as we're used to by now, we have the now pretty unmistakable Pixel camera bar paired with one of 4 colors: obsidian, which is black, porcelain, white, bay, blue, and what I have here, aloe, green. Personally, I love the blue or green colors as I'm just sort of a sucker for brighter colors for my tech, but they all look pretty good. Now, part of that is because of the matte composite back and the matte aluminum frame. They also have an anti-fingerprint coating, which again just makes the phone look and feel good in the hand. But while it is smaller and lighter than the 8 Pro with its 6.7-inch screen by a noticeable amount, it's technically a hair larger and a hair heavier than the Pixel 8, even though it has a slightly smaller 6.1-inch versus 6.2-inch screen of the Pixel 8. And that really comes down to the slight bezels that we have on the phone. Now, these don't bother me, by the way, but a lot of people seem to be annoyed by them. Either way, it means at least in a quick glance or even holding the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8a at the same time, there's not much to tell the difference between them. Or for that matter, the Pixel 7a, which arguably has a lot of similarities with its 8a successor. One welcomed upgrade over the 7a, though, is that we basically have the same display as the Pixel 8 now. Same higher 2000 nit peak brightness, same resolution, same HDR support, even the same higher now 120Hz adaptive refresh rate for smoother scrolling and animations that can drop down to 60Hz when something static is on the screen to save some power, compared to the 90Hz as the max refresh of the 7a. You just still have the same Gorilla Glass 3 protective cover glass over the display like on the 7a, instead of the stronger Victus glass on the 8. And we have an IP67 rating for water resistance compared to the higher IP68 of the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro. So it can survive being submerged in 1 meter of water for up to 30 minutes versus the 1.5 meters of the other two. Again, same as the 7a. Which, considering most of the time at least people drop their phone into less than a meter of water, probably not too concerning. And welcome to Oracle Park, the home of the San Francisco Giants Major League Baseball team. This 42,300-seat stadium was built in 2000. It was the first MLB park built without public funds since the completion of Dodger Stadium in 1962. It also was the first MLB park to receive LEED Silver certification for existing buildings, the most widely used green building certification in the United States. Its proximity to the San Francisco Bay makes it possible to hit a home run into the water, and there's a splash hit counter even set up for this eventuality. Also, if you weren't familiar, that same San Francisco Bay is the reason for the blue version of the Pixel phone's name of Bay lately. There's also some fun items to the left field bleachers, like an 80-foot tall Coca-Cola bottle that lights up whenever the Giants score a home run, a four-fingered glove that is a recreation of the 1927 baseball glove, and Little Giants Park, a tiny version of the stadium. Because why not? And this seems like a good place to talk about the cameras, one of the biggest reasons that people consider the Pixel lineup in the first place. So for the Pixel 8a, we have two cameras, which on paper are identical to the Pixel 7a. We have a main 64 megapixel f1.89 aperture camera with 0.8 micron size pixels that get binned in sets of 4 by default to get a 16 megapixel image with 1.6 micron size pixels when done. This is compared to the 50 megapixel f1.68 1.2 micron size sensor that gets binned in sets of 4 to get a 12.5 megapixel image with much larger 2.4 micron size pixels when that's done. Now, the larger the pixel sizes, generally speaking, the more light can be let in and the better the dynamic range. And we have the same sensor on the 8 Pro that's on the Pixel 8 as well. Now, regardless of the hardware, as we know, the software does a lot of the heavy lifting, and the Pixel lineup in general is pretty top-notch. But you could be the judge, as per the usual with the photos in this video. Then we have our 13 megapixel ultra-wide camera with an f2.2 aperture and 1.12 micron size pixels that aren't binned. Now, this is more similar to the Pixel 8 ultra-wide, except that there is a slightly larger sensor on the Pixel 8 with 1.25 micron size pixels. The Pixel 8 Pro, though, has a 48 megapixel f1.95 ultra-wide sensor with 0.8 micron sized pixels that get binned in sets of 4 by default to get a 12 megapixel image with 1.6 micron sized pixels. And again, the software is doing a lot, but the ultra-wide hardware differences become a bit more apparent here in side-by-sides than the main camera does, at least. And also, just like the Pixel 7a, the cameras here on the 8a are both a bit wider than the comparable cameras on the non-A models. In the case of the ultra-wide, though, it's a bit more pronounced, and I actually kind of appreciate it, as I prefer my ultra-wide cameras on phones to be wider, so that they're just more of a difference between them and the main camera. Also, the 7a, 8, and 8a are all missing any sort of dedicated telephoto camera, whereas the Pixel 8 Pro has the 5 times that I actually really like about it. But something odd here is that the Pixel 8 has the ability to crop out 12 megapixels of its main sensor to get a 2 times lossless zoom with a pretty sharp image at the loss of some dynamic range. The 8a and 7a, though, for some reason, don't do this. Instead, we have a digital 2 times zoom, so not quite as good of a method of doing that technically. Even though it has the megapixel count to do so, the sensor itself apparently needs to support it. Regardless, the 2 times still does a decent job at least. And again, let me know what you guys think of the cameras and the phone in general in the comments below. For the selfie camera, we have a 13 megapixel f2.2 aperture 1.12 micron size sensor compared to the 10.5 megapixel f2.2 aperture 1.22 micron sized pixel sensors of the 8 and 8 Pro. As for video, on paper, it seems they're all capable of shooting 4K 60, but it's worth mentioning that the ultra-wide camera on the 8A, again, just like the 7A, can't do 4K 60, but the others can. Not something that I honestly use much myself, but I know a lot of people that love 60 frames per second and slowing it down in post, so worth noting maybe. And again, as is the thing now, it seems with Google, we have some purposely limited camera software features. So the entire Pixel 8 series, including the 8A, now has a few software camera features that the 7 series doesn't have. We have Best Take, which allows you to take a succession of similar photos of people in a 10-second period or so, and it'll give you the option after the fact to change the expressions they made during those photos, but of each person separately. We also have Audio Magic Eraser that allows you to record a video, and it'll decide what sounds are in the video and pull them out as separate tracks, basically, so that you can then adjust them separately. So, you can get rid of background noise, for example. Then there's Magic Editor, which is similar to the Magic Eraser feature that we're used to on Pixel phones now, but instead of deleting items, you can actually move them, and it'll try and blend them into their new location in a Photoshop-like edit. And lastly, we have Ultra HDR, which is Google's new HDR format to get better dynamic range when viewing the photos taken in the new format on a display that supports it. So again, As I discussed in my Pixel 8 real-world test, which I'll link below, we see Google using their software features as a way to further separate the different models. And in this case, make the 8A have more features, even if it's just through artificial software limitations over the 7A with basically the same camera sensors. Welcome to Sports Page. This bar has been here since the 80s, apparently, and is conveniently located near Google's Shoreline Amphitheater, where I.O. happens tomorrow. And it has been rumored to be a place where many Google employees hang out. A bartender even mentioned that the Google team had their meeting about going public in the space, supposedly. Now, Google employees are so intertwined with this dive bar that they refer to it as Google Building 50, as in, we'll have a meeting in Building 50. See you there later? You can actually find it listed as such on MapQuest even. And on Google Maps, Google PLYM, Plymouth, the name of the road, 1431, the actual address, is a building located inside Sports Page. Yeah. Nowadays, it's also a legendary post-I.O. hangout, and my buddy Michael Fisher, who you might know as Mr. Mobile, is the one who actually brought me here tonight.
All right. I'm gonna make you proud, Dad. But not tonight.
You can check out his video that he made on the Pixel 8a here at I.O. as well. I'll link that below. Okay, so the battery died. Here is my screen on time and my usage for today for anyone who's curious about that. And as always, it's a real world test day. It's not a normal day, and I use my cameras way more than you ever would. So here is another day so that you have something to compare it to. And overall, it's okay. Nothing crazy, not terribly great, but it's just what we've come to expect from Pixel phones, unfortunately. But maybe it's like slightly better than the 7a, which brings us to the software in general. And it's as you'd expect from any Pixel device at this point. The Pixel software experience is honestly one of my favorite software experiences on Android. It's just smooth, up to modern design practices, unlike some other companies, has a lot of useful software features, and gets updates with new features regularly. One of my favorite changes that's happened here is the addition of being able to use Gemini, Google's ChatGPT competitor, in place of Google Assistant. I can now tap and hold on the power button to kind of walkie-talkie like talk, or even type if I want, to Gemini in what feels like a much more powerful version of Google Assistant. Now, it isn't quite a full-blown assistant yet, as it can't control lights, and there's some other things that I'd like it to do, but it's easy to see how that's probably coming. Regardless, it's useful for sure, and especially when you can push to talk to it like this. Now, speaking of more AI features, we have Circle to Search, which allows you to tap and hold at the bottom of the screen to then be able to circle or tap things to instantly search them. And this was first introduced on the new S24 series of phones, but as mentioned in those real-world tests, which I'll link below if you're curious, it was bound to come to other devices, and of course the Pixel phones were high on that list. And frankly, I use it actually more than I thought I would. And of course, we have all the other software features that people rave about on Pixels, like Call Assist to screen calls or stay on hold for you, etc. The best voice to text on any phone, in my opinion, live translations, captions, the Recorder app that transcribes in real time and identifies different people, etc. And honestly, that's sort of the name of the game for Google with the Pixel series lately. Make minor hardware changes and promote the software ones. And it makes sense from a business perspective. I mean, you keep the hardware similar, so that keeps costs down, and you add value through the software instead. They're definitely not the only company doing this right now, though. Samsung and Apple have both started to, but Google just kind of feels like they're leaning into it a bit harder than most. Regardless, I'm still left with the same conundrum that I was at the end of the Pixel 8 real-world test. I generally don't like the idea of purposely limiting software features when the hardware is perfectly capable of doing the things. But it's definitely something that we're going to just see more and more with all of these new Gen AI-based software features from a lot of companies, I'm sure. And hey, the features are still useful features. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about choosing between the Pixel 7a, Pixel 8a, and the Pixel 8 specifically? With all the discounts on the Pixel 8 lately, as well as the definitely lower price of the 7a, I think it's a bit of a hard decision for most people, and I'm curious what you guys think. But subscribe if you're not already, and ding the bell so you get notified when I do new videos, as we'll explore a lot more places while we test out more tech. But it is late, and I have to get up early for the actual I.O. tomorrow. So, good night. Coffee. Nope. Banging, 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 bang, 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 bang. Solar panel roof is airplane. Right above me. There it is. Playing again. They also have an train? There's a train. Middle of the night. Train going through Santa Clara. They also have an anti-fingerprint coating. Train's still here. Limitations. Motorcycle middle of the night. Big truck. Giant semi-truck. Coming into the hotel? Question mark? What are you doing, sir? Oh, he's making a U-turn. He's just making a U-turn here where I am of all places. Awesome. To sports page. Nope. Motorcycle. Car behind me now. Too many cars down this one side street. It's like a highway. So it's too many. These cars are too loud. Why does that light turn red? Seagulls. Laughing at me. That is pretty funny. I'm talking to a camera in a parking lot.